AskReddit. What's your I finally met my online friend horror story? Said he was 14. Turns out he was 38. My parents gave him a stern talking to. I met a guy online. We really got on and he came over a few times so we could hang out. I did find him attractive and tried to hint that I was into him. Note, I can't flirt to save my life, but nothing ever happened. After a few dates he suddenly vanished offline. No social media, he wasn't answering texts or emails, nothing. I thought he'd ghosted me. After 6 months he reappears. I asked him where he'd been and he said I don't want to talk about it. A few weeks after, there was a fad where people were googling their names and posting humorous stories they had found about similar people with their name. Mine was about a ship that had my initials, and I started to google friends' names just out of boredom, morbid curiosity. Googled his name and found a local news story from his area. One of those crime and courts things that he had been done for statutory rape of a minor, online grooming, and had his computer and phone seized as evidence. This is way back in the mid-90s. Bulletin board systems were all the rage. I made friends with this guy from NC. He was friends with a bunch of us from my dorm, mostly females, which should probably have been a red flag, but I was extremely naive at the time. A couple months in, he mentioned he was coming to our state for a wedding and asked if he could come by our college to meet everyone. It was agreed he'd sleep in my dorm room since my roommate was almost never around. Now, there was no discussion or thought of sex, but I was pretty excited to meet this guy and see if he was as funny and charming as he was online. Well, day arrives, dude shows up. I should mention that I and all my college friends were 18 or 19. This guy was 24. Or so he said. Guy looked like, and I'm not exaggerating, a cancer patient. Pale, gaunt features, long greasy pale blonde hair except where he was bald on top, and just generally looked like he was about to die or he was dressed as a ghoul for Halloween. He insisted on hugging all of us. I was trying to remind myself that looks don't matter and that he was a cool guy despite his very unsettling appearance. But then, when we all started hanging out, things just got worse. He was asking really invasive questions of all of us, making weird comments to whatever was said, just all around creepy and distressing. I was sitting on the floor with another friend and actively rocking back and forth from discomfort. I lied and said I had hurt my back and that sleeping on the floor helped, because that night he kept insisting we could share my tiny twin college bed. Nope. Last time I ever met anyone from that site. Not a horror story, but definitely weird. At 13 years old, I went to a show where my male online friend was also supposed to go. Not a big show and I was with my father, don't worry. We were supposed to meet at one of the entrances, but he never showed up. When I asked him about it later, he said he must have been at the wrong entrance. Over time we stopped talking for no reason really. A few years later, one of our mutual online friend told me she learned that the guy in question was actually a girl. I don't care about the gender, the thing is that she wasn't the one on any of the pictures she sent to us and our other friends, and her name wasn't her real name. She totally invented another identity. The worst part is that another of our friend even told us she got pregnant from him. I don't know if she asked her to fake a pregnancy, or if it was her own idea, but that was really weird. Wonder what other things she lied to us about. He was driving cross country with a friend. I said I had a couch floor they could crash on if needed. He was great. She was an annoying bitch. She hated everything, was annoyed by my cat, didn't like anything I had to eat or drink, etc. They were literally there for like 16 hours. We were friends online for years. We'd meet up every so often and when we started families we'd meet up and take the kids to the zoos or whatever. She wanted us to go on a cruise together, with our husbands and kids. I made the comment towards the effect of we can't afford that, and she went nuts. We shouldn't have had kids if we can't afford them, we shouldn't have more children. Our life sucks blah 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 because I didn't want to go on a goddamn cruise with her and her bratty ass kid. Sounds like a nightmare. I don't know if it's a horror story, but it's how I ended up where I live now. I played WoW for years with a pretty regular group. Got to know them offline, and at one point two of them, a couple, invited me to move across the country. At the time I didn't have anything tying me to where I was, so I packed up and moved. Got out here, moved in with my friends, and everything seemed okay. My buddy was a long haul driver, so he was always gone for days at a time. His girl would try to set me up multiple times with two of her friends at the same time, one in Minnesota. I ended up having a hard time finding work for a while, finally got a job though and was putting some money away while helping watch their kids. Out of nowhere one day my buddy accuses me of trying to fool around with his girl. Nothing had ever happened, but I had noticed her spending more and more time in my room when he wasn't there. I knew his history, and his previous relationship had ended after she cheated with a friend of his. He wouldn't listen, so I got kicked out without any warning, and they stole about $1K worth of my stuff and later moved. Ultimately it all worked out for me. Got a good job here, wife, kids, and then cut out the friend and the girl completely. Edit clarified that I cut out the friend and the girl, lol, not my wife and kids. After college ended I was playing a game called EVE Online. I was in a corporation with a dude who I thought was the coolest. He had sold shit in game for real world money and had built a supercomputer. He had a smoking hot girlfriend and had pictures of them rock climbing doing some super cool shit. He was also like a head chef where he worked, and since I was a chef as well, I had a little bit of a bromo crush on him. He told me after I graduated that he could hook me up with a manager job, and all I had to do was move up there. I sold everything I owned that day at a pawn shop and bought a U-Haul and started driving. 1 hour before I got there, it was like a week-long drive. He called me and told me the job was no longer available and I shouldn't come. Then he found out how close I was. He said to just come anyways. When I got there I was completely blown away. They lived in a disgusting Section 8 apartment with 4 other people. In a 1-bedroom apartment. They had like 3 cats, which I'm allergic to, and a kid as well. Day 1 it was all drugs and partying. I did not partake. I was not enthused. Day 2 I went into the city looking for a shit job to survive. I got one. It was shit. Day 3 my buddy tells me we're all moving out and into a nice apartment. Week 3 we actually move into a new apartment, and the first night in that apartment he starts beating his smoking hot girl in front of their kid. The second time he beat her, I called the cops. Him and his girl immediately said I was the bad guy and that they were just loving each other. They had the cops escort me from the apartment, so there I was, 1,700 miles away from home, homeless at 2 AM, and it's fucking raining on all my shit. Lars, you are a sack of shit and I hope you die of space herpes. I used to play WoW with my now ex. Our guild leader actually wound up moving to our state with his wife. My ex and I broke up before we got the chance to hang out with the guy, and right after the breakup he messaged my ex essentially asking if it was cool if he and his wife got me drunk and took advantage of me. Ex showed me screenshots when I was getting my stuff from his place and I cancelled my plans to meet the guy and his wife. My ex had been physically abusive and broke up with me to date the girl he cheated on me with. I tried leaving before but he'd fake suicide attempts and I was so scared he'd go through with it, so I stayed. Even though he was in a new relationship he tried to keep tabs on me and control me, but I saw it as my chance to escape. I happened to move right after we split and he didn't know my new address. I blocked him on everything. Somehow he kept getting information on me though. Turns out the guild leader was feeding him everything. I hadn't deleted the guy off Facebook cause I figured he was only a problem in person. When I confronted him over Messenger, bringing up the abuse, and the guy said, he choked you because you guys were arguing and he was afraid he wouldn't get the chance to speak. He still loves you. Side note, the choking was cause I was defending myself against accusations of cheating, which I hadn't done. I was on Meet Me, met this guy who was super cool. We ended up texting every single day and I took the train out to Los Angeles to meet him. When I got there, he was being kinda shitty and he told me that he hadn't gotten much sleep because he was partying until 5 AM. We walked to his house and when I walked into his room, I was kind of shocked. It was a 8x6.5 room. All he had was a mat on the floor and a small little jewelry box full of mementos on top of his suitcase of clothes. We took a nap together. Later, We went to get ramen and he asked me to pay. I didn't mind. We went back to his place and we listened to music while we waited to go to the party. Fast forward to that night, we met up with some of his friends and they were so mean to him. They kept roasting him and picking on him and he was visibly getting upset. I stopped him for a bit so his friends could walk ahead of us. I reminded him that it was all fun and games and to ignore them. Ended up at the party and lots of people knew him. I sat out in the patio with a few cool people that I had just met while I waited for my friend to come back from saying hello to everyone inside. He never did. I was outside in the patio with these strangers for about 3 hours. People kept coming up to me and asking if I was alright. IDK if I looked sad or if I just looked like a plain loner. I went to find him and it was so packed. Didn't see him so I walked back. I seen his roommate and asked him to please tell my friend that I was gonna go get a motel. He went to tell him, came back and said my friend was being a dick and amp. He would walk me back to the house instead so I didn't have to spend money on a hotel. We got to the house and I thanked him for walking all the way back home. I really appreciated it as my friend was probs inside doing coke or fucking girls. I went to bed in my friend's room and he woke me up in the middle of the night kissing me, trying to get his freak on. I simply said no. I'm not interested in having sex. His exact words were, "Are you serious? What was the point of you coming here? You're such a waste of time." My feelings were really hurt. I went back to sleep, woke up and left. Never wrote him after that. He had texted me a month later asking to borrow $50. I simply ignored the message and moved on. If you see this JPEG file while watching this video, you have been visited by Trumpet Skeleton of the Abyss. Good bones and calcium will come to you but only if you comment. Thank MR Skeletal. Also don't forget to like and subscribe for more Reddit related videos.